melody. Give a cafe love that I feel in my heart. Spirit.
As we just take this moment and breathe into the now, we know that there is a power, that there is a presence, there's an energy that permeates all life. I call it God, Spirit, universal wisdom. And I know this power, this presence is alive. Everywhere in nature we see it, we see evidence of it. And it is alive within each and every one of us. Each one is filled with this power, this presence, this very truth of our being. We are united in it. We are united by it. We are connected. We are all one. And so in this time right here and right now, we just turn our attention to these words and this space and time, and we allow our minds to expand and open, and we allow our hearts to expand and open as we just connect with the beautiful message that is coming forth that touches our hearts and allows us to look at ways that we can expand our lives and grow. So I know everyone is blessed that is present today. I know everyone that hears these words in the virtual world is blessed by God, in God, and as God. And I give thanks for all of this, letting it go, letting it be, and so it is. We're continuing our theme of going further together. And today we're going to take just a couple of minutes and look at sharing the dream. So our internal state of mind influences others around us. Let me say that again. Our internal state of mind influences those around us. And one of the things that Dr. Ernest Holmes taught was he taught that we are all spiritual broadcasting systems. That whatever is going on here, whatever is igniting me, whatever is I'm passionate about, whatever I'm paying attention to, is going out and being broadcast to the world, even in those moments when we don't believe it's happening. Even in those times when we think that we're reeling it in or we're hiding it, it's showing up everywhere. And it's touching other people. And what we want to do and we want to focus on is to be able to do our part in the healing, not only the personal healing of ourselves, our spirits, our bodies, our minds, but in the healing of the planet, so that that energy that goes out, that we are broadcasting, is very positive and powerful. And we are seeing some changes and shifts in modern medicine today where doctors are beginning to realize that the mind and the body and the spirit are all connected. And it's not just about science, and it's not just about one thing. It's all components together. And I was so thrilled about a year ago when I found new doctors here in the Aurora area who asked me in my first appointments with them, how often do I meditate? How much time do I take to just be calm and let go of my stress? And what are the techniques that I use? And that was evidence to me that I had found the right people to work with me regarding my health and well-being. And so medicine is moving, it's catching up with what we have known in spirituality for a very long time. And so what we want to do is we want to look at those relationships, and we want to look at that internal relationship with self, and then we want to look at how we reflect that on the rest of the world. So I have a quote here from Dr. Ernest Holmes, and it says, "The tree is not a person. All it does is to depend on nature. All it knows is to grow. So it never short-circuits the divine energy that gives it life. Nature knows what to do, and nature does that. And wouldn't that be great if that's what we did? If we didn't get in the way and short-circuit that energy, the divine energy that lives within us. And sometimes we have a tendency to do that. One of the other things that Holmes said that we all have talked about for many, many years, those of you who are in science of mind and are familiar with this philosophy, is that we are open at the top. And that idea of being open at the top, it is that ability to take a look at something that maybe you've never heard of or you never considered before, and just going to that space that says, well, maybe I don't believe all of that. Maybe I don't grasp all of that, but maybe there's a piece of this that has meaning for me. And that's why I often say, don't take my word for it. Don't take all of the things that you hear and make them yours. Decide if they fit for you. Decide if these are pieces that you need in your life and that you choose in your life. So often we are hit by that beautiful thing called inspiration. An idea shows up. And then we go into the mind chatter of what we can and cannot do. And we go into the how is it going to happen. And we forget that if it was inspired to begin with, if it came to us through inspiration, there is nothing more we need to do but to grasp a hold of it and allow it to unfold. There may be work, yes, there may be things to do, but it's not that we have to figure it all out in that first moment. We can take the time and allow it to unfold. We are taught over and over again that we have an opportunity here in this life form to become the best version of ourselves. And we can do that. And we can do that together with the support of one another. I have another quote from Dr. Ernest Holmes that says, things exist in the universal mind as ideas. Ideas take form and become things in the concrete or the visible world. Thought calls things forth from the universal into expression. Thought, it begins in the mind. It begins in the idea, that very first thing that comes to us. And this is how we manifest our reality. And the good news is, if we just allow it to be, it unfolds perfectly. And the not so good news is that if we try to define it and we try to figure it all out and we try to know how we're going to get from point A to point B to point C and move forward, that sometimes we shut ourselves down and sometimes we stop that creativity that's flowing through us. I want to tell you about a woman. Her name is Ellen Marie Bennett. Ellen Marie Bennett, at the age of 24, took approximately $300 and invested it into a business and made it a multi-million-dollar business. She was a line cook in two very prestigious restaurants in Los Angeles. So she was working full-time in two part-time positions. And one of the things that she noticed was that the uniforms that the cooks wore and that the wait staff wore were just not conducive to the job they did. She didn't like the aprons. She didn't like the way they looked. She didn't like the way they wore. She didn't like the way they felt. And so she kind of had this little idea kind of percolating in her mind about something that she could do about it. And one day the chef came to her and he said, we had a sales rep come in who's selling us some new aprons. And if you want one, I just need to know, do you want one or not? And that question is pretty much a yes or no question. But what Ellen said to him was, well, wait a second. I have my own business and I make aprons. And the chef said, you're kidding me. How do you have time for that? I didn't have any idea. He said, so you can make us all new aprons? And she said, yes, I can. And he said, okay, I need 40 aprons and I need them in 30 days. She walked away from that conversation, and when she left the restaurant that night, she kind of had a panic attack because there were some things that you might want to know about Ellen in that moment. She hadn't started her business. She didn't know how to sew. She didn't know how to make an apron, and she didn't have a pattern. So she had all of these to-do items, all of these hows that she had to figure out. But she was so excited about the very idea of getting her business going that she wasn't going to stop. So she agreed to cook dinner for a group of people, and in exchange, the person who was the host of the dinner made her a pattern that was pretty much worth $300 that she was going to use to make these aprons. And then she took that pattern and she went and found some people who knew some things about fabric. And then she went and found some people who had sewing machines and knew how to sew. And then she went on until she finally got everyone she needed together and she started making the aprons. And at the end of 30 days, she delivered 40 aprons, and they weren't so great. And when the staff put them on and began wearing them through the day, she could see immediately what was wrong. She could see how the straps weren't fitting right, and she could see how the fabric wasn't flowing right. And the chef came to her at the end of the day, and he said, you know what? Ellen, these are some interesting aprons, but they're just not going to cut it. And she said, do not worry. Give me a chance to take half of them back and fix them, and then I will take the other half back and I will fix them. And that's what she did. And she began a business called Hadley and Bennett. And within a very short time, she was creating and making and designing aprons for wait staff and cook staff in the most prestigious restaurants in the United States. She recently wrote a book, and the name of her book is called Dream First, Details Later. And she will tell you to this day that she never, ever considered all of the little bits and pieces and steps along the way. She knew what she wanted to do. She knew what it needed to look like, and she knew she could make it happen. And that's all she needed to know. And so she started with the dream. So something kind of gets in our way from time to time when we talk about dreaming and we talk about moving forward. And I have this quote that says, when obstacles arise, you change your direction to reach your goal. You do not change your decision to get there. You don't stop and halt the process and say, oh my gosh, this isn't going to work. You go into that place that says, okay, well, this isn't working, so let me try and work around it or make it a little bit different, or maybe if I adjust the straps, or maybe if I adjust the cut of the pattern a little bit, that's all I need to do. And that's what we want to look at, is when those obstacles get in the way. And some of the obstacles that we have been faced with is our belief system. For some of us, it's tough to dream. We just don't believe we can accomplish what we want. For some of us, it's the motivation that we get all charged up and we get all excited, and then you tell 2 or 3 people, and 1 or 2 of them is a naysayer, and they don't think you can do it. Or you just kind of start to lose that momentum. And before you know it, 3 or 4 days have gone by and you haven't even thought about the dream. And then there's that external world we call conditions, the world of conditions, with all the things that are happening out there. And we look at that and we think, okay, so what is getting in my way? And I'm just going to call it what I believe it is. It's called fear. You can call it whatever you want, but it's fear. Fear of success, fear of failure, fear of trying to make it happen, fear of not having enough money, fear of being too old, fear of being too young, whatever that is. See, we have all been facing this thing called our own mortality. The past couple of years have given us very intense viewpoints about life and death. For months, many of us sat in our homes watching the numbers on the TV screen increase as the deaths related to COVID kept growing and growing and being reported, and all that statistical data that was supposed to be giving us information that was actually scaring us to death. And then for many of us, we had that moment in time where we turned on the TV and without realizing it, we were watching a man by the name of George Floyd take his last. And we were faced with something that we hadn't necessarily faced in quite the same way before. We've always known that death and dying is a part of the living process, but we never saw it to the degree that we saw it in 2020. And if there's anything we need to know, is that that can cause a lot of trauma and drama in the body, and that brings forth fear, and that halts us in our tracks. I have a quote here from Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. She says, "It is only when we truly know and understand that we have a limited time on earth that we will begin to live each day to the fullest, as if it was the only one we ever had." There's an expiration date on these bodies that we're living in. And we don't necessarily know what that is, but we know that it's there. So let's stop pretending that that's not the truth, and let's start looking at the reality of who we are, and let's start embracing the idea that we have today. We have this moment. We have the right now to take the steps and make the dreams happen that we want to make happen. I believe that each and every one of us has something to contribute. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter where you grew up. It doesn't matter if you have challenges, whether they're physical, emotional, whatever. None of those things matter. Every single person, every single being was created with a purpose, and we all have something to contribute. And so what we want to look at is what is our contribution independently and individually, and then when we come together as a collective whole, what is that contribution as community, as a collective? We want to create the dream together. We want to create the vision. And so we're having an opportunity, this community, the New Dawn community, on November the 7th to come together and to vision and imagine our new sacred space. Because right now we are in a temporary location in Denver, and where we choose to be is in Aurora, Colorado. And so we're going to get together and we're going to expand upon those ideas, and we're going to take some time to vision and listen to that inner wisdom tell us what kind of things we need to look at and look for. And then we're going to also take the time to go into expanding that and putting our own creativity on and our own creative spin, so we know exactly what we are desiring and exactly what's going to show up. And I promise you, as we create this dream together, I will do everything as your spiritual leader, everything in my power to ensure that each and every one is fed, filled, purposeful, and supportive and supported in the process. And that it gets to happen. Because I know that when we come together with a clear vision, universal wisdom cannot say no. That spirit divine says, they keep saying the same thing over and over again. They must really want this. Here you go. And that's how it happens. And so that's what we're going to look at. Yoko Ono said, "A dream you dream alone is only a dream. A dream you dream together is reality." We are going to build our own new reality together. And it's going to take every single one of us coming together in unison to work together, to build, to imagine, to create. And no idea is going to be shut down or turned away. Everything is going to be documented so that we can look at it and go, okay, here's all of the wonderful things. Now, how are we going to put this together so that we have a clear, precise vision of what we want? I want to close with a quote from Ernest Holmes, and it's a little lengthy, but I absolutely love this. And here's what Dr. Ernest Holmes says. "If we can bind ourselves together reverently, in love and compassion, in mutual tolerance and understanding, under the cohesive powers of the universal law of good and the beneficence of a divine and universal presence, then shall we be able to use the liberty without license, to untangle unity from uniformity, and to lead the world down the pathway to a new enlightenment." What a beautiful statement that is. And yes, that was one complete sentence, and that's pretty much how Dr. Holmes spoke. He's talking about binding ourselves together. We have to make a commitment. We have to share in the process. We have to hold each other up and know that we are going in the same direction at the same time, and honoring that energy and that force that's taking us there. And then we get to untangle the unity from the uniformity and lead the world by beginning with the dream of a new dawn. A New Dawn Center for Spiritual Living in Aurora, Colorado. We are called. We are called to be together. We are called to serve the community of Aurora, Colorado and beyond. We are called to do the good work, to support people in need who are seeking a better way. We are called to do this work. So let us plan this week ways that we can bring this all together, that we can be supportive of this process, and that we can not only dream, But once we have the idea, we can share it with everyone. Please pray. So as we bring this brief time together to a close, I know that ideas are percolating in the minds of those who have heard the message. And I know that these are all divine wisdom. These are all part of that presence, that spirit, that Godness that lives within each and every one of us. And as we go through this week, we were able to come up with new ideas and creative ways to dream and to go further together. And it's perfect and it's good and it feels so right. And so what I know is that each and every person who hears this message, each and every person who is a part of this community and is touched by anyone in this community is blessed by God. All people everywhere. And we all have something to bring to the table, and may we do that in a manner and a fashion that supports one another and uplifts us all and helps us to grow and become more. How perfect is that? How good this is. And so I just claim it as what we are and what we are about. And I release these words unto the law of mind, knowing that in divine mind, it is already coming forth. It is already opening up, because that's how it works. So it's perfect, it's good, and by God, it is already done. I let it go and I let it be, and so it is.
Spirits moving in me. I'm gonna sing to the world its perfect melody. Give a cafe love that I feel in my heart.
Hello. I'm Reverend Jen Wild, Senior Minister for New Dawn Center for Spiritual Living. New Dawn Center is a global community, and we welcome all people, all paths, all ways of thinking, all philosophies. So know that you are welcome here, and thank you for joining our online community.